Noble Team, Burning Sky by Brian Shinomiya. Valentina was lying on a bunk in a Marine Corps prison cell, gazing up at the cracked ceiling. She liked the orange jumpsuit she was issued. The door swung open suddenly, the tight hinges screeching loudly.
718554.
A tall captain said as he entered, closely followed by Sheperd. Valentina's ears perked up.
You've been AWOL for several years and that ended you a 10-year prison sentence.
Valentina's thoughts, however, were elsewhere.
Lucky for you, it's against the law to keep pregnant women in jail, and since your friend here makes you out to be quite the mutant slayer, the court is willing to overlook the AWOL charge for now.
He explained and left. Valentina was still staring at the ceiling.
They wanted to give you the death penalty,
Sheperd said as he stepped close to her. Surprisingly, this information meant very little to Valentina. Her head, the whole time, has been filled with other thoughts. Caring was never her stronger suit to begin with. The look on her face, as absent-minded as ever, shifted to Shepard's face. He waited for a response. She looked like if he had just informed her that they were going to their favorite restaurant. Why didn't they? She asked, folding her hands behind her head.
because of that monster growing inside you.
He replied, dropping a uniform on her stomach. Valentina was concerned about Mac. She wanted to know what happened to him.
They're letting you out of jail, but you have to stay at the barracks on the outskirts of town.
He replied as Valentina slowly sat up. She was done with being ordered around. Yeah, sure, I'll go straight there, she said, removing her uniform. Sheperd shook his head at her reply. He had a very deep love-hate relationship with his partner. On one end, Valentina was ruthless and an amazing killer. One of the best people for the job. But at the same time, she was as stable as a ticking time bomb, always looking to cause trouble. Her actions frequently lacked caution and forethought, leading to numerous risky situations for those involved. At times it felt as if she was always seeking the next high, that familiar feeling of overwhelming adrenaline. When she was in her groove, nothing could sway her aside, not even the health of her companions. Valentina changed into the grey, white, and black camouflage uniform. She pulled her hair back into a bun on instinct, being in a uniform. There were 3 officers in the hall as she left her cell. The mutants broke the surface again, one of them said.
Where?
Instead, a block away from Centrala, Illinois is the battleground. Overseas, Astra is gone.
There's no hiding it now.
The captain from the cell said. Sir, there is a full mobilization order, a soldier said as he rushed down the hall. Valentina and Sheperd looked at each other. She shrugged her shoulders as Sheperd shook his head in disbelief. You miss me then? Valentina jokingly said, poking at Sheperd.
Too much, V.
Sheperd laughed as they walked down the hall and left the jail. The atmosphere was as grim as ever as they headed towards the main gate on the other side of the base. Men were rushing around the base. Loud yelling followed by chatter and various orders echoed through the chambers as soldiers got ready to be deployed, uncertain if they would ever return. Sky tanks and ground APCs were taking off, producing a defeating sound as the engineers quickly picked up speed. They were handed guns and armor. Normally, we don't hand out weapons to punk-ass army guys, the sergeant said to Sheperd. Sheperd laughed in response as Valentina rolled her eyes.
You hear that?
Sheperd said, looking over to Valentina. If only these punks knew, Valentina said, spitting on the floor. They continued to the main gate, with only one officer trying to stop them. The other officers were busy and seemingly forgot to mention to Valentina that she was to be transferred. On top of that, she wasn't permitted to have weapons. She eyed the guards in full combat gear. They let the two sentinels pass without an issue.
Now what?
Sheperd asked. I don't know about you, but I have a fine piece of ass that needs a spanking. Valentina sighed as she headed towards a waiting sky tank.
Do me a favor, Val. Stay focused on the mission.
Sheperd said, following behind her. Okay, Daddy. Valentina spiked up, twiddling her hair. The sky tank took the two sentinels to downtown Charleston. No one asked them the kind of question that would sway their decision. They were created to kill. They were ready to kill. Fear and unease lingered in the streets, being that more police were out than usual. The people rushing around the busy street glanced at the two sentinels with curiosity as they walked with confidence. Valentina looked back at Sheperd. With his kepi, dark glasses to shield his sensitive eyes from the neon lights, and respirator on so little green skin was showing, Valentina was certain her partner was just as ready to fight. Just two soldiers taking their guns out for a walk, she said. Sheperd smirked.
Don't take too long now,
he said. Valentina entered Mac's apartment. Several people stopped in their tracks to stare at her.
What's going to happen next?
Sheperd asked as they got into the elevator. I'm going to have a baby.
No, you fucking idiot. I meant with the mutants.
Valentina chuckled at his reply. She tried to distract herself from the thought as the elevator climbed higher and higher. Ever since she found out about her pregnancy, her thoughts were a jumbled mess, a feeling she had a difficult time adapting to. The thought of being a mother was completely new to her. Hell, she was designed to kill, not bear children. For a moment, it felt as if the time stopped. Valentina closed her eyes and let her mind wander to a future filled with countless precious memories that she would share with her child. She could almost feel the warmth of her baby's tiny body snuggled close to her chest, hear the sweet cooes and giggles that would fill their home, and smell the soft, powdery scent of newborn skin. In her daydream, Valentina imagined rocking her child to sleep, singing lullabies, and watching as the baby's eyelids slowly closed, their tiny breaths growing slower and more peaceful. She pictured herself cradling her baby in her arms, gazing into those bright, curious eyes, and feeling an overwhelming sense of love and tenderness. These were the moments that Valentina longed for, the moments that she knew would be the most precious and unforgettable of her life. That's when another unusual feeling hit her, the fear of having a child during such chaotic times, the danger of the world she was living in. Could something as innocent as kid survive in it? A sudden wave of paranoia brushed over her. Her stomach twisted in an uneasy knot, making her feel as if she was going to vomit. Valentina's anxiety was noticeable to Sheperd, who interrupted the silence with a heavy sigh, bringing her back to the present moment. You didn't get any orders? She asked. He deployed his heads-up display.
Negative,
He replied as they left the elevator and headed down the hall. The door to Mac's apartment came into view. Valentina tried to remember the code to his apartment. She typed in what she thought was the code, and the door opened.
Messy, honey, we're home.
Sheperd sang in a high-pitched voice. Will you shut up? Valentina snapped as they entered. Sheperd walked to the fridge.
What a shithole, it's empty.
He groaned as the fridge door opened. Valentina sighed.
No, wait. There's a candy bar.
You're so worried about me having a kid when I feel like I already have one, Valentina said, slamming the fridge door shut. Sheperd devoured the chocolate bar in silence. Valentina set her machine gun on the counter and walked to the Mac's bedroom. He must be at work. She shrugged. She looked around his bedroom, walking over to his bed. The pillow felt the pressure of her hands as she pressed down on it. It still felt warm. She sank into his silky sheets, inhaling his strong scent. A scent she longed for and dearly missed. She began to daydream about the intimate moments they shared long ago, where affection was more tangible than ever. She reached for a t-shirt that was left on the edge of his bed and brought it up to her lips. A sensation started to happen in her lower belly. Perhaps his scent was provoking a strong physiological arousal. She let out a quiet and soft moan as her hands began moving down to her thighs.
Shit, Val.
Sheperd yelled from the other room. Valentina jumped back to reality.
Couldn't you have picked a guy with the smaller apartment to fall in love with?
Sheperd asked in a mocking tone. She ignored him as she got up from Mac's bed and walked out. Sheperd tuned on the hollow screen on the wall. Valentina found the chair next to him and sank into it. Some hours passed, and Sheperd was still watching the news. He wasn't shocked there wasn't much about the mutants.
Cover it up at all costs. That's all they ever do.
Sheperd mumbled at the screen.
To think how much money our Lucy government paid into sweeping everything under the rug.
It's either that or a global panic. Countrywide riots would unravel in less time than it takes for you to eat another one of those fucking candy bars. Valentina said, throwing one at Sheperd's head.
Hey!
Sheperd yelled. Riots were a perfect opportunity for the disfigured and vicious mutants to sneak in. With a distracted crowd, more destruction happened. It would only result in pure chaos. The government higher-ups were not about to risk any of that. It's why we are here, stupid, Valentina said. And who's to say some of that money wasn't put into creating us?
So she speaks of some sense, finally.
Sheperd said. Valentina perked up upon hearing the code to the door being put in. Mac's voice drifted into the apartment, but stopped as he realized there were people in his home. Hesitantly, he and a woman entered. Okay, thanks for your visit, but it's time to leave. Valentina snapped as she pushed the girl back out and closed the door. Who's she and what's going on? Valentina shrieked, grabbing at Mac's collar.
What are you doing out of prison?
Mac yelled. Did you forget that I'm pregnant with your baby? Valentina gripped harder at Mac's collared shirt. Mac looked to Sheperd, who was sitting at the table, chocolate lips and all, looking as if he was watching his favorite TV show.
Val, that's just my coworker, and we were going to dinner to wait for her husband because she forgot the code to her apartment.
Valentina felt herself losing the grip. Max slowly backed away and opened the door. The girl cautiously entered. Sheperd lifted the blinds, allowing the green neon lights from a building across the streets to cast a glow on his face.
Sarah, this is Val.
His girlfriend. Valentina cut him off. Sheperd did his best not to laugh.
Oh yeah, he mentioned you, but didn't say you two were expecting,
she replied.
I heard you through the thick metal wall.
Yeah, and so did the neighbors, every night.
Sheperd mumbled. Mac turned bright red.
I'll order some food.
And chocolate sauce.
Sheperd added.
It's not my fault. You eat like a mouse.
The overall mood improved as the group waited for the food. Small chatter here and there, making the whole scene a little less depressing. Sarah observed the two soldiers. It was hard to discern their skin color due to the pale blue and green lights, but she thought the men had green skin. Sarah was eager to get out of Mac's rundown apartment complex but waited modestly.
So, why are the two armed soldiers in your apartment?
She asked, looking at Mac. Instead of answering her question, he just looked to Valentina for an answer. As per usual, Mac wasn't going to reveal her true nature or even consider being the dominant one. He leaned on his loud girlfriend for a response. He's my boyfriend. Valentina replied, eyeing Sarah as if she was going to release a round of bullets at any second.
I'm just here to protect him from her, and probably you as well. My partner here has a nasty knack for turning living things into not-so-living for something as simple as piece of gum.
Sheperd replied, making the group chuckle. Before Mac could say anything, his phone rang.
Food's here!
He said, rushing out of the apartment. Several hours passed, and Sheperd still hasn't received orders. Sarah had left Mac's apartment. Valentina and Sheperd refused to let Mac change the channel on his TV. Sheperd tried to ignore his teammate making out with Mac and the pillow talk that was out of character for her. She didn't even talk like that to him during their several amorous adventures. She had to be the dominant one. Seeing her take the role of sweetheart of the two was awkward. Sheperd found that it was sickening at times. It was almost as if there were two sides of Valentina, a sweet, mushy side for Mac, and an asshole side for Sheperd. He believed it to be entirely unfair. Sheperd stood up, sending the chair flying as he gripped the table. Valentina and Mac looked at him, confused by his action. It took a second, but she could hear what had him on edge.
What?
Mac asked. Suddenly, the whole apartment began vibrating. The thunder-like sound of tank shells broke out as the group listened closely, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. The leftover food fell to the floor as the roaring got closer.
Tank shells, and they are close.
Sheperd replied. A moment after he said that, the city was filled with the wailing sound of rooftop sirens. Paranoia washed over Mac as his eyes widened. Visibly distraught, he tried looking for answers in Valentina and Sheperd. Instead of giving Mac any comfort, they grabbed their guns and headed for the front door. "Stay here," Valentina demanded as she and Sheperd rushed down the hall.
Please be careful!
Mac yelled out as his two sentinels rounded the corner. The tank shells were blasting every few seconds, melting in with the bone-chilling sound of sirens. For Sheperd and Valentina, this was just another Monday morning. Unlike the rest of the soldiers, these two did not mind the danger. They thrived of it, savoring the sweet adrenaline of hunting down disfigured mutants. This can't be good," Valentina said as they entered the elevator. She checked her weapons, made sure they were properly loaded, and taken care of what was about to happen.
I still don't have orders. We must have lost control out there.
Sheperd replied as Valentina deployed her heads-up display. Civilians in the elevator watched the two soldiers in shock and confusion. "Shit, they breached the surface all over the city," she yelled. Sheperd loaded around in his gun chamber and readied himself.
What's the plan?
He asked. "Well, first and foremost, wipe the rest of the fucking chocolate off your face," Valentina snapped.
Watch out. Angry pregnant lady in the vicinity.
Sheperd mumbled, using his arm as a napkin. "Let's just defend the building and wait for someone to give us orders," she sighed, gripping her machine gun. As soon as the elevator finished descending, the bell rang, and two soldiers raised their guns. The three other occupants tried to hide in the elevator's corners as the doors slowly opened. Valentina quickly noticed that the lobby of the apartment building had been breached. Hounds jumped from panicked human to panicked human. "Now!" Valentina yelled as she began firing before the doors were completely open. She and Shepard rushed out, each plasma bolt from their guns tearing the mutants apart limb by limb. "To your right! Right!" she yelled, alerting Shepard about the hound preparing to jump him.
Loading!
He roared as she turned to cover him. They struggled to shoot the mutants without harming the humans. They weren't used to fighting around living and breathing civilians. It wasn't because they cared for people, but it was simply due to their programming that told them not to do so. Morals were never their stronger suit, but killing humans would mean getting decommissioned and potentially shut down.
Move up! Move up!
Shepard barked and pointed to an overturned couch. Valentina dashed to the location, jumping on a wounded hound's head and crushing it in the process. "Move your green ass there!" she yelled and pointed to a pillar that would give her a good vantage point over him. The mutants were flooding the building in a hunger-crazed frenzy. The snapping of their jaws combined with bone-chilling growling made for an unnerving scene. It had been a while since Valentina and Sheperd experienced such a devastating scene. It felt like the mutants were pouring in like an untamed tsunami. They could barely contain the chaos. The hallway quickly turned bloody as the mutant corpses were lining up one after another. The few unfortunate people were cowering in fear as the shots were flying everywhere. Shaking like twigs, all they could do was watch in horror as monsters tried their hardest to get a taste of them. "Loading!" Valentina yelled as the building was rocked by an explosion outside.
Tank!
Sheperd yelled as an army APC stopped out in front of the apartment. The machine gunner struggled to contain the hounds. Valentina and Sheperd tried to help by firing out into the street, but they were outnumbered, and the APC was overrun. Screams could be heard as the APC crew was being slowly torn apart by the hungry mutants.
Shit! Fall back! Fall back!
Sheperd yelled, and the two backpedaled, firing at the vicious crowd. Now rushing out of the building to the soldiers outside, the mutants were strategizing their rage. Valentina and Sheperd had to wait for the elevator as they kept firing. It was horrifying to see how quickly the mutants overwhelmed everything around them. Ever since the government's brilliant idea of cutting back on protection protocols, the mutant hordes have been growing bigger and more ruthless by the month. In their heads, money was everything, even if it meant sacrificing a few soldiers here and there. Instead of cutting them down at the root, the orders the defense forces got was to react when the mutants made their appearance. Destroying nests and sealing the various contaminated areas proved to cost too much. The sentinels were down to their last few mags when the horde decided to thin out. Their blaster shots were exchanged with the screams of the fellow soldiers who were defending the tanks. Valentina and Sheperd were well aware of the brutal reality that newbie soldiers faced. The training regime used to be way more hardcore and longer. Now, the men would get no more than a couple of months before they were sent out in the field. It got so bad that some of the veterans used the newbies as a bait, assuring them that they were the ones who returned home to their wives instead of the rookies. Valentina and Sheperd rushed down the hall back to the Mac's apartment. "Baby!" Valentina yelled, hoping Mac would hear her.
Get back inside!
Sheperd yelled at everyone who was sticking their heads into the hall. Mac opened his door after hearing Valentina's call for him. She pushed him back into his apartment, sending him crashing to the floor. The news was still broadcasting footage of cops and soldiers fighting and losing to the mutant hordes while demolished cars, burning buildings, and mass panic were all happening at once. "This can't be happening," Valentina said, her voice nothing more than a whisper. Sheperd placed his gun on the coffee table. "We already lost," she whispered again.
What do you mean?
Max said, his voice beginning to tremble. She couldn't look away from the screen. Fear washed over her as a total annihilation set in her mind. For once, she wasn't thinking about herself. The thoughts of her baby and Mac being in danger flooded her mind like another tsunami. Sheperd was looking at his heads-up display. Dozens of orders calling all units back to Centralia, the skyscraper in Charleston where the social elite lived.
Listen, Val.
He said.
We got to move before the power goes out.
Valentina looked back, deployed her heads up, and saw the same orders. Sheperd handed Mac a pistol.
Remember, when we're shooting shots in the same direction,
he said. Comment, what is going on? Valentina asked, pressing the call button on her earpiece. Comment, where are the safe zones? She asked.
There is no
There was another pause. A man called back again. The TDCs are overrun. The voice cut off with a pain-filled screech. Come in, where do we go? She yelled. Sheperd looked confused because Valentina was calling out on a marine channel, not an army channel. Evacuation of J Street! A woman called over the comm, and Valentina repeated it to Sheperd and Mac. Sheperd was busy trying to get a hold of someone on the chaotic army channel.
Where the hell are these things coming from?
First Squad Alpha Company was overrun.
We've been overrun! Voices yelled in his ear, but he couldn't get a word in. It was clear the situation on the street was grim. The consequences of using unfit soldiers were already showing. The inexperienced ones were unable to cope with the enormous creatures lurking in the depths beneath. One look at the hound, or God forbid the bigger mutants, and they were out. Their mind froze in fear, paralyzed, unable to do anything but pray they wouldn't suffer for too long.
J Street, that's 2 blocks away. We can get you a prime piece of ass there.
Sheperd said to Valentina. The three were in the elevator while the lights flickered and the motor whined as they descended. The expression of uncertainty on Valentina's face frightened Mac, but the expression on Sheperd's face made him tremble.
Val?
He said after a moment. She looked at him with her red and gold eyes.
I love you.
He said, breaking the tension in the elevator. Her mind went blank as she struggled to come up with a response to the statement. The meaning of the words eluded her, leaving her feeling lost and confused. In a moment of desperation, she simply parodied the words back, hoping to buy herself some time to process what had been said. I love you, she said, and saw his cheeks turn red. As she witnessed Mac express his excitement over some seemingly insignificant words, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pure elation within herself, despite not fully understanding the reason behind his happiness. It was something about him that made her feel special, even if she was designed to be nothing more than a killing machine. Mac's blissful mood was cut short as the doors opened and the two soldiers' earlier work was revealed. Mutant bodies lay twisted all over the lobby. Their vile stench was sickening. However, the sentinels were used to it by now. Mac, on the other hand, wasn't having the time of his life, coughing and gagging as he looked around. Valentina wanted to say something witty to light up the mood, but when Sheperd left the elevator, her mind went blank. Per usual, she picked up her old habit of singing to fill the unsettling void. Say goodbye as we dance with the devil tonight. Don't you dare look at him in the eye. She fell back into her routine of singing to prepare herself for a battle. Say goodbye as we dance with the devil tonight. Don't you dare look at him in the eye. Na, 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 na. Max scanned the area as Valentina held her hand on the closed door button. Sheperd motioned for them to follow. Valentina stopped Mac to kiss him. Be careful, she ordered. She could feel Mac trembling as she gave him one last hug. That poor boy wouldn't survive a day without her protection. Sheperd and Valentina made their way through the lobby. Mac struggled to put on his respirator and hold his gun. Valentina handed Mac her submachine gun and ammo. Cover me, she said to Sheperd. He nodded, and Valentina cautiously walked over to a mangled pile of meat and bones that used to be a soldier. She grabbed the belt-fed light machine gun next to it and the ammo sack. She checked the inside of APC. Blood, meat, and bones were thrown about inside. Should we take it? She asked.
No, the engine will alert the Huns.
Sheperd replied.
Guys!
Mac cried. The two looked to see two tankers rushing down the street for them. Shit! Get in! She barked and rushed into the APC tank. Sheperd shot the armored ramp to the APC as the three entered and Valentina climbed into the turret. Come on, you son of a bitch! She cackled as she racked the bolt on the massive machine gun. The roar and violent recoil of the gun passing through her petite body brought a sadistic, gleeful smile to her face as chunks of muscle flew off the first tanker. Oh, is the little pussy hurt? Here, let mama kiss you better. She laughed, unleashing another burst. The berserker-like rage was slowly taking over her. The well-known high was setting into her veins, resulting in an overwhelming amount of adrenaline being released. The Sentinels were designed with only one thing in mind: destruction and murdering mutants. This meant that they were programmed to have insane amounts of adrenaline released every time they did some mutant purging. The engine of APC roared to life, accompanied by Valentina's manic laughter as the second tanker's head exploded under the full fury of the mounted machine gun and its demonic gunner. "What? You had enough? Oh, you're no fun!" Valentina spat at the tanker as it crumpled to the ground. A pack of hounds came rushing around the corner, but stopped in their tracks to begin tearing into the tanker's dead body. "Oh, look, more playmates!" Valentina said joyfully, as the machine gun roared and barked. Beautiful green plasma bolts fired out only to cause the much more fragile hounds' bodies to explode in a pink mist. "Oh, you guys pop really nice!" Valentina mocked the dying mutants. Sheperd laughed at her wild banter. "Celebrating your own death?" she continued. Slowly the APC lurched backwards, initiating a K-turn on the Clutter Street. Max sat in the back of the APC, clutching Val's ankle. He wasn't sure what to do as the armored truck backed up, stopped, moved forward, and continued the jagged motions until he was about to vomit. "Hey, green jackass! Don't get us stuck!" Val barked as she ducked back into the hull of APC.
Shut up, Val!
Sheperd snapped. He was answered by her sadistic laugh and the thunderous roar of the machine gun. Mac couldn't believe the sound Val was making in the turret. She truly loved her work. Suddenly, she lifted and began kicking. Val was being sucked out of the turret. Soon, an unnerving array of screams and squeals came from outside as Valentina laughed. Sheperd was too busy driving to help, and Mac gripped his submachine gun, but before he could move, blood rained down on him, and Val dropped down into the hull with a demonic smile on her face.
What happened?
Mac asked. "The hounds think they can kill me," she replied as she holstered her pistol. Mac pointed to her shoulder.
"You're bleeding!"
"I don't have time to bleed." Val laughed as she stood up, occupying the turret again. "Try that shit again!" She screamed like a banshee. The energy coming from her was something words could not describe. She loved every second of mutant killing. Despite facing danger on the daily, she could not get enough of it. Mac looked out the windshield. They were now moving down the street, pulling dumpsters and police barricades out of the way.
You know,
Sheperd said over his shoulder.
I never learned to drive.
Mac couldn't tell if he was joking or not, but he was hitting everything on the street, and the APC was jerking from side to side. Valentina was being thrown from side to side, struggling to stay standing. Through the thick windshield, Mac could see green plasma bolts zipping all over the place into the ground and buildings on both sides as she fought to stay standing. "Damn it, keep this thing steady!" she barked as she dropped into the APC.
I can't drive!
Sheperd snapped. "No shit, I can see that!" She yelled at him as she shut and locked the turret hatch.
Just sit back there and do what you do best. Lick shit off each other.
Sheperd yelled as he mounted the curb with the APC. A hound jumped onto the hood of the armored truck. With its beady eyes, it spotted Sheperd through the thick glass and began pounding on it with its head. The mutant was too weak to crack the glass. Its guts started to appear with each smack it made. Sheperd just kept driving even though his view was blocked. Valentina bounced in her seat and was even thrown to the floor as their amateur driver hit everything in his path. Mac, with his dear life, gripped the handles on either side of his seat cushion and watched the comical scene played out in front of him. For two sentinels who were made for the annihilation of monsters, they looked like a bunch of clowns trying to control their little car. Mac chuckled for a second, helping him cope with the fact that he was probably seconds away from being torn apart by the abominations. The APC came to a violent halt as Mac saw dark orange plasma bolts rain down from above.
Yeah, shit hit the fan!
Sheperd yelled.
They're doing airstrikes!
The APC lurched forward and did a nose dive into the earth. Val dove forward and crashed into the back of the passenger seat. "Shit brains, be careful with me! I'm pregnant!" she smacked Sheperd. The trio left the APC through a heavy door on the armored ramp. The APC was sitting near vertically in a large crater. "Way to go! We get a nice car and look at what you do!" Valentina yelled as they walked away, scanning the buildings around them. Mac was close to her, even closer than ever.
We don't have much farther to go.
Sheperd said as he looked up in the time to see a second-story window get splattered with blood. The streets were lined with torn limbs, a few complete bodies of mutants, and even fewer humans. As the sun went down and the night crept in, a chilling atmosphere descended upon the city. The air was thick, and the smell of death lingered. It was as if the city had been abandoned by all life, leaving behind only an unsettling presence that could be felt by anyone who dared to venture out. "You think we can regain control?" Valentina asked.
No.
Sheperd replied as they reached the end of the block. "This is Sentinel Team Noble. We are at the J Street. Where's the evac?" she announced, activating her comm unit.
Noble team, this is AWAC Bird Falcon. Activate infrared strobe. I have room for 2.
A man's voice called back.
Copy.
Sheperd replied as he took a metallic brick from his belt, pressed a button, and dropped it. He looked at Valentina, who was ready to kill anything she saw. How the hell is she going to be a mother? Sheperd thought as he looked down the street.
Tanker!
He yelled. Valentina's belt-fed machine gun barked and chattered as it spat out green plasma bolts. The mutant didn't last long and fell as the evac bird descended. A defeating roar of a shuttleless engine filled the air. The trio did their best to stay upright due to the powerful gust of wind from the military shuttle's engines as it landed behind the group. Mac tried to shield his eyes from the dust kicked up.
Go! Go!
Sheperd barked. "Shep!" Valentina yelled next to him. Sheperd was focused on protecting the group. "There's one seat left, Shep!" she yelled as Mac got on.
So take it!
He ordered.
Keep your child safe, remember?
But Valentina was cut off as Sheperd's fist crashed into her temple. She staggered back and the crew chief of the evac bird grabbed her from behind and pulled her onto it. He slammed the door shut and the craft started to climb straight up. Dazed and confused, Valentina activated her comm unit.
Good luck, Noble.
The pilot said to Sheperd.
Take care of them.
Sheperd responded. "Sheperd, you bastard!" Valentina yelled in a shaky voice. A strange, wet trial ran down her cheeks as she tried to open the door. "Why? Why?" Valentina howled in pain. As the crew chief forcefully pushed Valentina away from the door, Mac's eyes widened in panic and he instinctively reached out to grab her waist. His fingers closed around the soft fabric of her shirt, pulling her back towards him as he tried to shield her from the chaos. "Sit down!" the chief yelled. As she lost her balance, her body began to fall backwards, landing on Mac's lap. Mac's embrace was the only thing that could offer her comfort in the cramped space. She fought against the tight grip of his arms, desperately trying to break free from his grasp, but he held on tightly, unwilling to let her go. "Let me go!" she screamed.
Val, it's going to be okay,
Mac whispered in her ear. "Shep, how could you?" Mac held on tightly as her body quacked and trembled in his lap. As she sat there, her heart beating faster and her palms beginning to sweat, she realized she was experiencing a feeling that she never thought was possible. It was a mix of sadness, fear, and anticipation all rolled into one, and it left her feeling both exhilarated and terrified at the same time. The surge of emotion coursed through her worn-out body as she realized what just happened. Valentina's face twisted in anguish as she clenched her hands against her chest. The weight of her sorrow was too much to bear, and it quickly transformed into a fury rage. With every aggressive sway, the shuttle shook, but it held strong against her reckless behavior. Valentina refused to give up until she was granted passage to Sheperd, desperate to escape the chaos around her. Mac did his best to hold her back, fearing for the safety of the vessel. At this point, he knew just how furious his girlfriend could get. If he was to let her go, she would surely take down the evac to save her partner. Sheperd looked away from the shrinking evac bird. "Let me go! He needs my help!" Valentina's trembling voice pierced Mac's ear. As she sat there in Mac's arms, her eyes welled up with tears that quickly turned into a steady stream that cascaded down her face. It was a new experience for her, one that she had never felt before. It felt like her insides were being torn apart from the severe sorrow she was feeling. Her mental state got even worse. She reached for the gun, pointing it at the pilot as if that was going to help.
Val, no!
Mac yelled, trying to take the gun away. She knocked him, which felt like full-on punch for his weak body. The atmosphere in the evac was devastating as Valentina tossed her gun at the pilot, cracking the glass of the cockpit. "He can't survive alone!" she cried out as the last views of Sheperd came into view.
Say goodbye as we dance with the devil tonight. Don't you dare look him in the eye.
Sheperd's voice cracked over the comm unit. As he stepped onto the wrecked street, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the destruction that surrounded him. The once bustling city now lay in ruins, its buildings reduced to rubble, as its streets filled with evil enemies. With no living civilian in sight, he walked on, his footsteps the only sound in the eerie silence that enveloped him. Soon, he was out of sight and lost, wandering the streets without his trust partner, who would take the whole world down to protect him.
Here I stand helpless and left for dead.
Sheperd sighed under his breath, gripping his gun.
I won't stay long in this world so wrong.